Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Sister Wives with Mary Jane Kay. Today, I'll be breaking down Season 14, Episode 9 of Sister Wives. This land is your land, or hers? I know I'm skipping around a little bit after the tell-all. I'll start from Season 1, Episode 2, since I've covered the pilot episode. I'm sure Sister Wives fans remember the tree situation. In the trees or out of the trees, that is the question. Mary wasn't yet prepared to answer, and this scenario really showed Cody's resentment of Mary and his encouraging resentment of Mary among the wives. And it highlighted Robin as the favorite wife and how she likes to play the martyr and the victim. There's an abundance of scenes that display Cody's resentment of Mary, but this time it's not just dealing with Mary, between Mary and Cody. He actually displays the resentment openly among his wives and almost encourages them to be resentful as well. Now, Mary did a shady thing. Catfish or not, she was seeking attention from men online, sending suggestive photos like the one of her with a banana in her mouth that I unfortunately can never scrub from my brain and unsee. But she also sent love messages, and all the evidence is available online, unfortunately. I do believe that Mary is at fault for the emotional affair. If the catfish were really the person they portrayed themselves to be and a man, I think Mary would 100% have left the family and moved on. I also feel that Cody is at fault as well. He abandoned her intimately by withholding sex for 10 years pre-catfish, and he wasn't very present and invested in their relationship. And they lost a lot of their initial connection pre-catfish when Mariah was grown and had flown the coop. Cody is at fault because if he was attuned to Mary and connected emotionally and physically with her, I doubt she would have found anyone online. If he even made the slightest twinge of an effort or displayed a crumb of affection, she definitely, I don't think, would have even gone there. Now, Mary is still wrong. I'm not saying she isn't. And we all know, had the catfish been an authentic man, yes, she would have left with a quickness. But Cody contributed to it by abandoning Mary emotionally and physically way before the catfish. If Cody and Mary were in a good place and they had a good relationship and Cody invested in their relationship and fulfilled his role as her husband with Mary, and he had emotional closeness and he was fully present and intimate with her, I don't think it would have happened at all. Mary is still responsible for her emotional affair and her intention to leave had it not been a catfish. And Cody is also responsible for neglecting the relationship pre-catfish as well. I doubt Cody saw her often, and in the last one-on-one tell-all episode, we learned Cody and Mary hadn't been intimate for a decade or more, and that predates the catfish. And one could speculate that the emotional connection vanished with the intimacy or even before a decade ago. And Cody is definitely responsible for that, to some degree. Cody resents Mary, and there are better episodes that display that, and definitely better examples. But in this episode, Cody is making it plain to his wives and really trying to spread that resentment of Mary to them. Yet he keeps saying he wants all his wives to be close. In the beginning of Sister Wives, there was still some connection between Cody and Mary. Mariah was younger and Cody was much more involved with Mary, and there seemed to be intimacy and some spark between them. It was noticeable as Mary straightened Cody's tie before his wedding to Robin, and at different points of their Mexico trip in the earlier seasons of Sister Wives. The wives meet with Cody on the prairie dog playland with the drainage ditch that the Browns referred to as Coyote Pass with the coveted pond. The land has yet to even be surveyed at this point. They still haven't put in water lines or electricity, but nonetheless, they are on the land, deciding which wife takes what area of the property, what lot. At this point, they're all still waiting all the Vegas homes to sell. I still don't understand why they left the perfect setup. One house was too tenuous for the whole family, and that's understandable. But 4 separate homes side by side on one cul-de-sac was a much better and idyllic situation for the family. Yet they have been railroaded by Cody and forced to move to Flagstaff in a rush. Many speculate a balloon payment may have been due, but my guess is because Dayton got accepted at a university local to Flagstaff, Robin initiated the idea with Cody because she wants Dayton, who has special needs, at home with her as he attends university. I'm not sure about this, and it's just my opinion, and it's purely speculation, but Dayton was accepted at university before the move, and then they moved all of a sudden. Cody told the wives that the houses would sell immediately in Vegas, that the market was on fire, that it was the time to sell, sell, sell. But it didn't work out the way they planned, and the Vegas homes took much longer to sell than expected at lower price points than they expected to get. Cody seemed in a hurry to move. It seemed incredibly irrational, like there was some reason motivating Cody, and I really, really strongly feel that it may have been Dayton's acceptance. There's some other motivation than him just randomly wanting to move to Flagstaff. Anyways, back to this episode. Cody has brought pizza and water to have a picnic for his wives on Coyote Pass. Each wife has informally discussed where they would like to live separately with Cody, but they haven't discussed it among the 4 wives and Cody together as a group. We find out that Mary has 6 weeks to find a new rental, and Robin also has to move, but there have been no suitable rentals available. Apparently, the rental market in Flagstaff is incredibly limited. Mary wants to move onto Coyote Pass ASAP. She thinks buying is stupid even if the rental market is scarce. As we know, it's 2 seasons later and 2 years later, and all that has been done on Coyote Pass so far is bringing out a surveyor and bringing in a water tank. And we also learn that Cody is getting his own house on the land. And as it stands, Janelle's lot and Robin's lot are twice the size of Christine and Mary's lots, with the explanation that they have trees, which ups their smaller parcel's value. Christine bought her house, so Mary, who just said buying is stupid, has to explain to Christine that she doesn't think she's stupid. I'd also point out that Christine isn't the one that had to move 3 times in a year because she was renting. She actually decided to buy, and she didn't have to go all of these repetitive moves. Robin says she doesn't want to buy. She wants to scream at the idea of buying. And Cody pushes buying, and they butt heads over it constantly. But she did end up buying a multi-million-dollar mansion. Robin says she wants to build on Coyote Pass. She says Vegas was perfect, her kids were thriving, and then Cody came up with the idea to move. She wants a wonderful living experience of all the wives next to each other again, and she promised that to her kids. And now Cody is talking about investing and buying a home, and she feels Cody is breaking her promise to her and her kids. Cody says there are no rentals available, so there really is no choice. Robin says that they have to sit and dream and do something inspiring while they are all sitting on the property together. She says that she is really struggling and says she needs to feel like this is home as they picnic on the land. And I just want to point this out. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a Utah accent, but most of the wives say feel instead of feel and deal instead of deal. I don't know what it is. But anyway, back to the show. Janelle asks where everyone would choose to have their house built, and she did not know she was opening a can of worms. Janelle likes the spot that they are picnicking on. Christine likes a space by the fence line of the trees. Robin asks Mary where she wants to be, and Mary says Cody told her where all the wives would be, so she will have to be back there, suggesting that Cody let her know what was left for her to take. And that would be the area in the trees after the wives higher up on his totem pole get to pick first, and she gets whatever's left. Robin says Cody told her Mary wasn't interested in the piece of land in the trees. Cody interjects that Mary says she didn't want the lot in the trees, so Robin sacrificed and agreed to go there. Robin asks Mary if she wants the tree lot. She says Cody told her she didn't want it, as if Robin was generously accepting Mary's scraps. Mary asserts she never said that. She tells Cody not to make shit up. Cody insists that Mary said it, and Janelle interjects that she thinks Mary said she didn't want the lot with all the trees because she lives surrounded by trees currently in the rental she has now, and she didn't want a dark house. Cody says Mary liked a property they saw before they purchased Coyote Pass, and that property, that piece of land, had tons of trees. And Mary loved that property because of the trees. So Cody explains that because she liked the Cottonwood property, he assumed she'd want the trees at Coyote Pass, the lot with the trees. That's the problem. Cody assumed for Mary and made a choice without ever verbalizing it to her. So Cody suggested to Mary where her house could be built on Coyote Pass in the trees, and Mary said she didn't want trees anymore. There's a flashback of a scene 6 weeks ago of Cody asking Mary, "Do you want to be in the trees?" He says, "You want to be in the trees, right?" And Mary answers, "I don't know." Cody's frustrated. He says, "You don't know yet?" And she says she likes the trees, but being in the trees means the house will be dark. Mary says she likes trees, but she's not sure she wants to be in them, so she lets Cody know she didn't know yet what she wanted. Robin teases Mary. She says, should we flip for it? And Mary half jokes, and she answers, I don't know, maybe I'll just go live in Parowan. And Parowan is Parowan, Utah, where Mary owns a very successful inn that she bought, and she did it all herself. She seems like a very intelligent woman. If I was Mary, I'd definitely go live in my inn in Parowan. Mary recounts her version of the conversation that she had with Cody, and Cody said that Janelle, Christine, and Robin want specific spots so that it leaves her with the spot that's left, which would have been the spot in the trees. And that's how Cody approached Mary with it. But Mary says she doesn't want to be deep in the trees, and she had already told everyone that. Robin says it's stressing her out too much. Mary says she's not happy at all right now. She never said she wanted the area out by the road. She never completely turned down the area by the trees. She hadn't made a decision yet. Janelle says the claims on property should be softer because she feels that something is going on in the family and that this is going to create a commotion. Robin blames Cody and says he's been saying really weird stuff. He told Robin the tree property was left, as if she was the wife getting the leftovers. Janelle says that Cody told her Robin would be in the trees. Mary asks, what? And Robin tells Mary Cody told her the tree lot was what was left. Mary answers, no, that's not at all the conversation that she had. And she says, that's not at all the conversation, Robin. Like, you can tell that they're both getting very irritated at each other. Robin asks Mary if she's mad at her. And Mary explains, not at you, Robin. And Cody says, well, don't be mad at me. In confessional, Cody doesn't know what the problem is because Mary gets the choice of trees regardless. If Robin takes the tree lot and she takes the lot close to the road, she can choose to have trees or no trees at all. She could build a house in whatever area of that piece of land she wants, and she has both options if she will just accept the piece by the road. Cody says Mary shouldn't vacillate. She gets close to the road, and she can still have her choice. She gets the best option and the best choices if she just will accept the lot by the road. He asks the camera, so what's the problem now? He tells Mary it's simple. He suggested a place for her in the trees, and she said she didn't want it, so Robin said she'd like to be there if Mary doesn't want it. Robin says no. Cody said to Robin that this is what is left. Can it please work for you? That the three other wives have picked parcels of land. This lot with the trees is the only one left. Can you please accept it? Can it work for you? She explains that Cody took her to the land and told her that everyone else has already chosen where they want to be. Can you please accept the back piece with the trees? And Mary says that in her conversation with Cody, he told her where the other three wives already chose. And he said all the three wives has chose. And this is the only piece left that they all chose already. And he suggested that she take the tree lot since she liked the trees. And that was what was left. But he initially suggested that she take the tree lot that Robin is now going to take because she had said she liked trees before and he was trying to please her. So Mary told Cody that she had mixed feelings about having a dark house being so surrounded by trees. And Janelle said she assumed that because Mary said that, Mary wouldn't want the tree lot. Mary says that she said she had mixed feelings about it, but she never gave a firm answer to saying no to the lot with the trees. Cody tells Mary not to be upset. On the street property, she can choose to have trees or no trees, but he's going to be putting Robin on the tree lot. Mary asks if it's final, and Robin says no, it's not final. She feels Cody is speaking for her, and she mentions how he said he was putting her in the trees, and she wonders if she gets a say in the matter. So basically, he told Mary, the only lot that's left is the lot by the street. You have to take this. All the other wives have chosen. And when initially he was going to give the tree lot to Mary because he was under the impression that she liked trees. Then she made that comment saying she's not sure yet because she doesn't want a house that's dark. So he gave, and I guess Robin wanted the tree lot. So Robin decided she wanted the tree lot. But Robin portrays it as they went out to the land and Robin said, all of the other three wives have already chosen. Can you please accept the lot with the trees? Like, you basically don't have a say. This is what's left. So both Mary and Robin got that impression from Cody. Robin gets super snarky and she says, well, Mary can have that over there. And she just like points to the land that has the trees. And she goes, I'll just get the front end. It's no problem. I'll just take what's left. It's all good. As if she is the martyr who sacrifices by taking the land on the street, accepting what's left, giving Mary what she prefers. Mary asks Robin, seriously? And Robin says, no, I'm not. And she doesn't complete her thought. She just says, Yeah, she's serious. And she's very catty about the whole thing. It's very weird. Mary responds, you'll just take what's left? And Robin goes, yeah, that's what I was told before. I'll do it again. And she raises her tone and voice. Mary says that she was told that by Cody too, that she was taking the last piece, the last thing that's left. And she asks Robin why she's yelling at her, because Robin has now raised her voice and gotten an attitude. Robin says she isn't yelling, even though she definitely has a tone, and she says she's frustrated at the situation. And Mary says she's also frustrated at the situation. Robin says she feels she's being jerked around a little bit, and it's not a good day for that. Mary says it's weird that Cody had the same conversation with Robin and her regarding the tree lot, telling them both everyone else has already chosen and this is what's left, you have to take it. Christine jokes that now she wants the tree lot too, since it seems to be the best place on the property. And Cody just stands there with his hands on his hips like an angry woman. I really think the issue is Cody assumed because Mary liked trees initially that she would want her home in the trees. When Mary was unsure and she said she's still unsure about which way, indecisive about what she wants, Robin then decided she wanted the trees, or Cody went to her and said, this is the last piece of land left, will you take the trees to try and solve the problem? So Cody wanted to give Robin the first choice about which piece of land she wanted between the trees and whatever land she was going to be on, and he was going to basically let Mary pick last. And he initially assumed that Mary wanted the trees, and when she didn't want it, Robin wanted it, or he decided to give it to Robin. So Cody told her she would have it, and now Mary, who never gave a firm no, is suddenly relegated to what's left by the street while she was still deciding what she wanted. She said previously she didn't know yet and that she didn't want a dark house, but she wasn't sure, so everyone took it as a no, but she never said a firm no. She was pondering it, and while pondering, Robin decided it would be hers. It's possible Cody told both wives the same thing, saying to Robin the trees are what's left, and telling Mary she'd get the trees because it was what's left. And Robin decided firmly that she wanted the trees while Mary was undecided. So rather than let Mary decide, he said now she doesn't want the trees, so Robin wants them, Robin gets them, without really telling Mary that that piece of property was no longer in play for her and that she was no longer getting that piece. So both wives thought they'd get the trees, basically. I think initially Cody thought Mary wanted trees, so he planned to give her that piece, and then she was deciding if it would be too dark, and Robin said she wanted it. And she can't say that she wanted the tree, so she has to say Cody told her that it was the last piece of land left, and she has to accept it, then she won't look so bad. Then when Mary is still indecisive, she said, well, fine, you take the trees, I'll take what's left, as if she's sacrificing and doing Mary a favor. I don't think Mary said no trees. She said she wasn't sure she wanted a dark house, and Cody took that as a no, and Janelle assumed that meant Mary wouldn't be interested in the tree lot any longer. Mary seems to vacillate and ponder and think things through over and over. She seems to be very indecisive, and then maybe she ponders for a very long time before she has a firm answer. What she said about a dark home makes it less likely that she'd want trees, and I can agree with that, but you can't necessarily assume 100% it's a no when she said, I don't know. Mary says she was told what she gets, like she wasn't given a choice. She was just told this is the last piece of land, everything else, all the other lots have been spoken for. Cody says he was giving Mary first choice because when they chose between a property with trees, Cottonwood, or Coyote Pass to build on, Mary preferred the Cottonwood land over Coyote Pass, and she said it was because she liked the trees. Cody says he was trying to really keep Mary happy. I think Cody may have made some assumptions and assumed that she would take the trees, and it didn't go as Cody assumed, so Robin swooped in. I doubt he told Robin, can you accept what's left? Is it likely he told his favorite wife to take what everyone else doesn't want and that she should just accept it, whatever it is? Robin tells Cody that he told her Mary didn't want to be back in the trees because he talked to Mary and Mary said clearly to him, no, I don't want to be in the trees, that she didn't want the trees. Mary clarified that he relayed the whole conversation that she had with him wrong. FYI. And Queen Robin turns on the snark. She goes, can I talk, please? And she tries to be sassy and cut off Mary like she's the HBIC. She continues that Cody told her the trees were what was left because everyone had already chosen lots with him. Everyone went out to the land to choose with him individually as couples, but Robin says she didn't get a chance to go with him and choose. She says it's all good, she's fine, it's a beautiful property, the mountain is gorgeous, and now she needs to go find a rental, and you could tell she's pissed. She then walks away as Mary is talking, and Mary says, FYI, since you got to talk, can I speak too? And Robin continues walking and says, not right now, and she's like full of attitude. So Robin expects everyone to hear her and listen to her side of the story, but she refuses to hear Mary or hear anyone else, just like Cody. Those two are cut from the exact same cloth. Robin says it's too much today. Mary says the conversation didn't go as Cody said, and she tells the cameras in confessional, speaking to Robin, don't keep saying you get what's left over because you're a low man on the totem pole. Mary is frustrated and leaves, and she says she has to go find a rental. Robin and Janelle are left, and they both agree that Mary said she did not want to be in the trees. Janelle warns that this is not over by a long shot, and I think she would be right. Robin decided to wait. Basically, she waited till Mary left, and then she decided to drive back and get answers. So miraculously, right after Mary's departure, suddenly her van pulls up. She comes back. She asks Cody why he told her Mary didn't want the spot in the trees and that it was definitive. Cody answers because Mary said she didn't want the spot in the trees. Cody asserts that Janelle and Christine both heard Mary say that she didn't want trees. Janelle confirms that they all perceived from Mary saying she didn't want a dark house that she no longer wanted the lot in the trees. Cody says Mary constantly changes her mind, that it's been a game for 30 years of his life. Robin gets her martyr tone of voice and says, I'm not going to sit here and fight over the property with Mary. That's ridiculous. She says she doesn't care about if she gets that lot. Cody says Mary changes her mind. Janelle says whoever lives there has to be okay with everyone accessing the pond, that the person who lives on that piece of land, on that lot, won't be controlling the pond, aka the drainage ditch. Everyone seems so concerned with this drainage ditch that they keep elevating to a pond. Janelle says when they lived in one house in Lehi, Utah, Mary didn't want the kids going through her part of the house. To get from Janelle's space in the home to Christine's space in the home, you have to walk through Mary's section of the house to go downstairs and get into the basement area where Christine lived in the one house. And they thought it would be best for the kids to access Christine's apartment from inside the house. But Mary was against the constant traffic and noise from the kids going through her apartment to get to Christine's. So it was a huge hassle, and they had to go down the cement stairs outside, even in the cold and in the snow in Utah, and then up or down another set of stairs just to get to the basement. They have to go all the way outside in the elements, in the cold. Janelle's area, and they have to walk across, go down more stairs, and it was more time consuming than just, walking like within the house. And it was impractical to go down the stairs, up the stairs from the outside every time versus just going through Mary's area and remaining indoors. And Janelle is concerned about a repeat of that. She is concerned about Mary getting the pond because she will try and control access. She might complain about people being at the pond. Janelle was glad Robin was taking the parcel by the trees so the pond would be easy access to everyone in the family. Cody said Janelle is bringing this concern up because he is still trying to just appease Mary and give her what she wants just to keep her happy, even if it means her getting the pond. Janelle isn't wanting Mary having the trees because of the pond, and she might, because of how she might control access, it might be a repeat of all the drama from Lehi, Utah, and she might not want the kids playing at the pond, and it would be on her property by her house should she decide to live on the tree property. Cody says that it's bullshit, and he says it's the type of bullshit you deal with in plural marriage. Robin says she won't fight Mary, she'll take whatever there is, and Cody says he was already giving Robin everyone else's table scraps. And he asks Robin if she thinks that's fair. He says he doesn't think it's fair. Cody says Robin was the one who was willing to accept it and not fight and argue over it. Robin thinks it's dumb to fight over who gets what lot. Well, then why did she make such a big deal and be so sassy with Mary when Mary still wasn't sure what she wanted, if it's really no big deal to Robin and whatever is totally okay and she's so chill and flexible about everything? She can't complain and act like a big fat baby about it, and she says she's not a victim here. Really? Then why did she tell Mary, you take the trees and I'll just take what's left? That's fine. I'll just take whatever's last. Like she was a martyr sacrificing to appease Mary. She says she isn't a victim, but she constantly acts like one. Cody says, stop. Stop defending Mary and acting like you aren't getting the shitty end of the stick. And Robin says, I'm not. And Cody says that he's super pissed and Mary can take whatever everybody else doesn't want instead of Robin and the other wives having to do it and give Mary whatever she wants. That she can take whatever everybody else doesn't want instead of Robin and the other wives taking the goddamn fence lot. And Robin yells no. Cody says he is done, he is sick of accommodating Mary, and he's so angry he can't even talk. He yells to Robin, who gave you last choice? Robin yells, stop it. And you can tell from Cody's eyes and smile, he is morphing into mask off Cody. Cody says he already gave Robin last choice and Mary wanted to change that. Robin says stop, and she says every piece of property is gorgeous and it's not like that. It's not some kind of weird competition for the property. Cody insists this is a game Mary plays, but he doesn't refer to Mary by name. He calls her she, showing he's seething in resentment. He wants to completely distance himself from her, not even call her by her name, just call her she. And he growls in frustration as he's like getting water out of his car. He's closing the back of his car door and he is like, rah, like growling in frustration. It's hilarious. He doubles down and he says, this is a game that Mary's playing and she's always played it from day one. And he says she's treated her, pointing to Janelle and Robin, and he's going to go on a tirade. And Janelle interjects that that's the type of talk that doesn't solve anything. I think she's trying to really put a stop to it. Cody says he's mad about it now because they had the problem solved. And Janelle says she understands where Cody is at, assuming the land was already decided on and everybody knew who got what and everyone thought it was squared away when it really wasn't squared away. And Cody says to Robin and Janelle and Christine that Mary won't be happy until she has the other wives bowing at her feet, waiting for her to decide what she wants. Robin asks Cody to stop speaking this way, and Janelle agrees with him. They're all trying to get Cody to like put the mask back on. And Cody goes on. He says he was trying to appease Mary because she always plays this game. And he tells his three wives that are present, you guys just watched it unfold. You are witnesses to this game Mary plays. Christine says that no one is disagreeing. I think everyone's just trying to calm him down. Robin says that she thought Cody was saying something different than what he meant. Cody says that she says that all the time and that they all witnessed Mary say she didn't want that spot and now she's changing her mind. And he says his wives prefer to fight with him than with Mary and they're taking Mary's side because they are trying to be loyal to her. Robin wants to know what went wrong because no one is understanding why Mary is so upset. Christina and Janelle and Robin all thought it was 100% settled and everyone seems to be really confused. Cody says it didn't go wrong with him. It's not his fault. He tells his wives, let's not blame me and have Mary say that he took something from her she didn't want taken from her. And Robin asks Cody to stop. Cody says he is being real and no one else is, and that his wives won't be honest about how Mary behaves. Christine says that she isn't being dishonest. Robin says, Mary is my sister wife and I'm going to work stuff out with her even if it's not easy. And she's like super dramatic. Cody answers, yes, but I'm perpetually playing this game where it's left foot, no right foot. And what do you want? Left foot, no right foot, no left foot, no right foot. He says he's constantly doing Mary's dance. And Robin yells, but that's your relationship with her, not mine. It feels as though she's over-dramatizing really bad written lines from a Lifetime movie. Robin wants her sister wife's relationships with her to be separate from what goes on in their relationships with Cody. Robin says she felt she had no choice in what piece of land she got, so she started reacting in front of Mary. Christine asks if Robin feels she has a choice on what lot she gets, and Robin says she has no choice. She's taking what Mary doesn't want. But a few minutes ago, she said she wasn't a victim and any piece of land was fine. So which is it? Is she not a victim and any piece is fine? Or does she have no choice and Mary has to choose first and then when she decides, she gets what's left? Which one is the case? Cody says he wants Robin to say it, to admit it. And Robin asks, what? She plays totally clueless. And Cody says, admit you are taking what Mary doesn't want. And Robin says, I am not complaining about that. And she points to the land and the mountain and she says, plural marriage sometimes makes you feel so disenfranchised. When you decide to live plural marriage, there's an unspoken agreement that if you are a good sister wife, you want things to be fair for everyone. And if you have a good husband, he will want the same thing, things to be equal and fair for everyone, having everything equal and fair. Robin says it's the only way plural marriage can truly work. And it's very interesting that Robin says that. Is it fair that Cody live exclusively at Robin's and not share his time, and that he make up stringent COVID mandates that are impossible to follow, using that as an excuse as to why he can't give the wives and other kids, equal time? Was it fair and equal when he accompanied Dayton to his eye surgery with Robin, but not accompany Christine to Isabel's life-threatening surgery? Is it fair and equal that Robin got almost a 2-week honeymoon and a huge wedding, while the other wives got smaller parties, other than Mary, and 1 or 2 day honeymoons? Is it fair that Robin's adult kids get to live at home because they follow Cody's rules, but Cody wanted to kick out Gabe and Garrison because they're adults who follow the CDC guidelines versus his mandates? Because Robin also has kids that are over 18 at her home. But Cody was very, very, very pushy about wanting Janelle to move out Gabe and Garrison because they were only following CDC guidelines. But Robin's kids were fine because they respected his rules. Is it fair and equal that Cody tell Christine he won't have sex with her and she should accept a loveless marriage with no intimacy, while he can get his needs met with Robin or Janelle anytime he wants, but Christine is accepted to accept no sex for the rest of her life if she didn't decide to divorce Cody? Is it fair that Janelle and Robin, who he favors over Mary and Christine, get 2 times more land than Mary and Christine get, so he can build his own 5th house on the land for himself? And he does claim that they have smaller lots that are half the size, but they have equal value because of the trees. Is that really equal? Robin says the only way polygamy works is if all the wives look out for the needs of each other. Did Robin look out for Christine's needs and encourage Cody to go with Isabel's surgery? Did Robin suggest it might be wrong of Cody to ask Janelle to kick out her adult kids when Robin's adult kids get to stay because they obey his COVID C-19 mandates? Did Robin suggest, since Mary follows Cody's guidelines for the pandemic, that he should check in on her during the week, during maybe even once a month? I doubt he even does that. Or even that maybe someone could help Christine care for Isabel as she's recovering from her scoliosis surgery so Christine can get some rest since Robin has a nanny? Robin says there's an amazing sense of vulnerability and closeness that comes from the wives putting each other's needs first and having each other's backs. Maybe that's why they're not so close now and why Christine and Janelle are so close, and Robin claims that there's exclusivity. And not everyone doesn't want to come together. Maybe they don't feel welcome because certain wives don't put other wives first, like Robin, for example. Did Robin have Janelle's back when she threw Janelle's kids by name specifically under the bus this season to try and paint herself as a victim viewers should sympathize and empathize with? Christine says the 5 of them should get together and discuss a resolution to the drama at Coyote Pass. And Cody says, if you push my buttons, I'm going to get frustrated. And Christine asks Cody if he understands that no one was intentionally trying to push his buttons. And Cody says it doesn't matter. His buttons got pushed, and he's tired of the constant game of trying to make people happy who won't be made happy. He says maybe the problem is that he hasn't said, this is what you get, and that's it. Suck it up, Buttercup. Next up, Christine and Janelle go walking, and Janelle says that her and Christine weren't aware of the miscommunication that was happening because it really didn't involve them and they weren't really expecting the fight or the drama. We learned that since moving to Flagstaff, Janelle and Christine get together more often than they did in the cul-de-sac in Vegas, even though they live farther apart. Christine says Janelle and her have always got along really well. They've always been close, and it's not just because they raised the kids together. They hit it off really well, and Janelle has been very easy for Christine, and their relationship has been easy. Janelle says they have different personalities, but they rely on each other, and they just do a lot together, and their kids are all, as we know, really close. Janelle says she told Cody the pond should be a park that everyone has access to. And Cody wasn't enthusiastic about that idea, but Janelle has serious fears that if the pond is on somebody's property, that the pond won't be as accessible to everyone. So she doesn't want it on any particular person's property, especially Mary's. Janelle says she wants to win over her allies, so she talks about it with Christine, and she says even though they are all together, that they need their separate space, and Christine says that that space and having their own houses and stuff, that's healthy, but that right now they have too much space, and that's why there was a lot of fighting. That's why the fight happened yesterday. That's what the fight was over, and that it all happened because they have been apart so much in Flagstaff that their distance is both physically and emotionally between them, on an emotional and a closeness front, and on a physical front and a communication front. They live far apart and they don't naturally come together or bump into each other in Flagstaff. So Christine says that the fight yesterday happened because everyone has adjusted to operating separately. And she thinks that there's a balance the family needs to achieve. If they get together more often, the drama will happen less. The wives and Cody will meet tomorrow to resolve things. Janelle is worried because everyone is emotional, that people won't be logical and want resolution, so the meeting might be a repeat of the drama from yesterday. That tomorrow will still be about everyone repeating and making their points from their own perspectives. Christine hopes it goes amazing, but if everyone isn't open-minded, tomorrow will be a repeat. Everyone meets at Christine's to squash the drama. Mary feels cautious because she doesn't know if everyone is calmer or more frustrated, and she says it was all about bad communication. Cody is at the lawyer's about the property, and he will be late, and Mary tells Christine in a very snobby way, call Cody, to please call Cody, and it was kind of almost a subservient attitude, like Christine was beneath her. I didn't like the way she asked Christine to call. I can't understand why Mary can't call her husband herself. If she wants Cody called, she has her cell phone in her hands at the moment she's asking Christine to call, and she's interacting with her phone clearly already, but yet she orders Christine to be the one to call Cody, and I find that super odd. If I was Christine, I'd tell Mary to call herself, considering she has her cell phone in her hands. Maybe Cody is blocking her calls. I don't know. Christine calls him, and she jokes, what should I call him? Ha ha ha. She's always trying to lighten the mood. And Mary just stares at her phone. She gives no reaction. She's like so solemn and serious. She stares at the phone in her hands. And Christine gets her phone. She calls Cody or texts him. I don't know. If I was Christine, I'd tell her if she wants Cody called, she better call him herself since her phone is in her hands. I didn't understand how Christine actually called him. Janelle says if they don't resolve the issue, it will just stew and ruminate and worsen. Christine says it's really uncomfortable. Finally, Cody walks in with good news. He is all smiles. He's excited. The lawyer is telling him that there is nothing to rent available in Flagstaff, and the lawyer suggested that it would be great if they build homes and not move in and rent them out, that they will get rich. At this point, when I watched this the first time a while ago, I felt like Cody doesn't really want to build on Coyote Pass at all. And it's 2 years later and still nothing has been built. And this season, we know that a surveyor came earlier in the season. I believe it was this season. And a water tank was brought in. But this is 2 years later and still no progress other than the surveyor coming and basically agreeing to what Cody wanted. And putting in the water tank, bringing the water tank onto the property. That's all they did. They didn't even put in the water line, the power line, nothing. There has been no progress. I suspect nothing will be built, and if it is, it will be sold or rented out. Robin says Cody is talking more like a businessman than the head of the family, and it makes her mad that he is talking about building rental properties on the land they are supposed to live on and raise their kids on. Robin says she wants everyone to get together and they need to build and live on the land together so everyone can operate as a family and so all of the kids can grow up together. As far as I know, the only kids left to grow up are Saul and Ari, and I think one of Robin's older kids has 1 year left to graduate high school, and I know Savannah has maybe about, and this is about, I mean, it's not exact, she has about 2 years left to graduate high school. I know Truly is 11, so she doesn't have that much time left. Isabel is probably already graduated at this point, I believe. And Gwendolyn has maybe 1 year left, maybe 2. She might even already be graduated. So it would really just be Truly, Saul, and Ari who will really be the only kids left on the land by the time, if Coyote Pass is even built, even if it's done in the next 2 years. So what kids does she need to grow up together? Because really all that's left are her 2 kids, Ari and Saul, and the grown adults that she keeps at home. So I don't know. And then Truly will be grown very shortly. So I really don't know what kids would be growing up together other than hers. Christine says that they want to move to Coyote Pass, and she's stressed by Cody discussing getting rich. Janelle mentions creating a private park for the 4 homes that would include the pond, so everyone get equal access to the pond, and she wants it put in writing. I mean, she's adamant about this. It must have been a nightmare with the Mary situation of having to go outside rather than walking through her part of the apartment in the one house. I think she's super traumatized by Mary and Mary's behavior when the kids were small and they had to walk outside and up and down 2 flights of stairs rather than accessing Christine's apartment from the inside of the home. And so she needs this in writing, and she's adamant about it. The pond, honestly, it's basically a drainage ditch, not a pond. And the dirt, by the way, on this land of Coyote Pass is infested with some type of plague bacteria from the prairie dogs. And the realtor, when they first see the land, the realtor warns them that the dirt has some kind of bacteria or some plague from the prairie dogs, not to touch it, not to get it on you, not to put it in your mouth, that kind of a thing. So this isn't really some idyllic pond everyone should be fighting over. It's really just a drainage ditch made amidst the plague-infested dirt that they were warned not to play in. Cody says he doesn't want to separate the forest or the pond or the waterway, and Janelle says she doesn't want any of those things on anyone's private lots. Cody says they have to be placed within everyone's lots or they won't have income property. Cody agrees they can do easements possibly, and Robin doesn't know what easements is. She asks what it means, and she asks if it means that everyone gets access to those pieces, and Cody says yes, exactly, as if she invented the moon. Janelle says that her and Cody will butt heads over the pond thing for a long time, but she's not going to give up, I don't think. And Robin says she's embarrassed and she's sorry for leaving in a huff the other day, and she says when Cody brought her separately to the land to see her lot, she felt she had no choice in the matter, and she felt like Mary was changing her mind again. She was left with no choice. So basically, according to Mary's whim, she gets whatever last piece of land is left. So she really feels like it's according to Mary's whim and she has no choice. So she has no choice except accepting what Mary didn't want, and it would be according to Mary's whims. And Mary tells Robin that she needs her to understand she did not feel she was fighting with her. She didn't want to fight about the property or which piece of land. And Robin says in confessional that because it sounds like Mary is saying it was not about the property with the pond on it, that's confusing to her because she felt like Mary was upset at her directly. Mary says she knows everyone felt she already made a definitive decision and she doesn't feel like she has. Mary says she hasn't spent time really trying to figure out what spot she wants to be on the property. She needs much more info to consider and to even give a definitive answer and give a final decision. Cody says he doesn't understand what Mary is talking about, and he says Mary is talking about 2 things and he isn't clear what she's talking about at all. And Cody says there's no clarity on what Mary is even referring to. Mary says she never said what property she wanted. She was going based off what Cody told her, that the other 3 wives had already chosen their lots and she was getting whatever was left. Cody tries to cut Mary off and Christine asks him to please let Mary speak. Cody is looking at Mary like he wants to suffocate her in her sleep if looks could kill, and Mary says she's struggling with the look Cody is giving her. Christine tells Mary, then look away, look at me, don't look at Cody, and Cody says he's just looking to understand whatever that means, or he's giving her a look to understand she better parrot whatever he wants her to say or else. Mary says she has never made a decision of where she would be. Janelle said that before the fight, she told Cody she liked the place by the road, and she thought Christine said she liked the spot further back, and that Robin and Mary had already worked out and agreed to Robin taking the trees since Mary had said she didn't like trees or want the trees, and that Mary was taking the spot on the road. And Christine thought it was resolved as well, and Cody knew what spot she wanted, but she wasn't 100%. It was all set in stone, or she would actually get the spot she wanted. So Christine thought it was basically resolved, but she wasn't 100% sure that she was going to get the spot she wanted. The land still hasn't been surveyed to be divided into parcels. If I was a wife, I'd call a surveyor first thing and bring all 4 wives to decide after the surveyor separated the parcels who gets what, and then have the wives meet Cody to tell him what they came up with. I wouldn't even go separately with Cody to pick where I wanted to be until the surveying was complete. The wives shouldn't have gone, each one separate with Cody. They should have got a surveyor who would separate and map the land and then decide together and then go to Cody with the results. Cody is the one who caused the problem. Mary said she didn't like being in a dark house surrounded by trees, but she wasn't sure, she didn't know yet. So everyone assumed no trees for Mary. Christine and Janelle already decided, and rather than everyone being sure of what Mary decided, either Robin said she wanted trees or Cody told Robin Mary doesn't want trees without consulting Mary. Mary says she never told any one of them where she wanted to be. Cody says he has to differ, that Mary made it clear to him she wanted to be in the trees. Then she told all of them she didn't want to be in the trees because she wanted to be sure she got enough sunlight. And Cody says Mary isn't apologizing for changing her mind repeatedly. He said there wasn't a problem until Mary said, I don't want that and I don't want this, but I don't know what I want. Mary says she isn't saying she doesn't want the spot in the trees. She loves trees. And Cody says he was saying that Mary should have the tree lot because she loves trees. Mary says she doesn't know if she wants to be in the trees because of the shadows. This is, I've never said the word tree more in my life. Cody says he understands that she doesn't want to be inside the trees, and Mary says she does not have a problem being close to the trees with the house moved out. Okay, Mary says things in an inconcise manner that can drive a person nuts, but I think I get it now, but I'm honestly not 100% sure. But what I think is Mary loves trees. She wants lots of trees, but she doesn't want to be deep in dense trees so her house gets full sunlight and it's not dark or dreary and there aren't shadows. She wants trees, but at the edge and not deep into the trees so she gets light. Okay, why didn't she say, I love trees, I want them, but I don't want the house built deep in the trees because receiving enough sunlight is a priority for me. That's all she had to say. Mary says she doesn't want to be deep in the trees. She needs enough sunlight. And Cody says the dumb thing is that Mary would be getting near the trees, but not deeply embedded in the trees, so it's dark, because she'll get what she would get in the property he was going to give her by the road would be her having trees, but not being deep in the trees and getting plenty of sunlight. If she just took the property next to the road that he wanted her to take, that would have been convenient if she was able to take it, that she wouldn't have been deeply embedded in the trees. It wouldn't have been dark. If she got the property that he suggested next to the road, she could choose where she wanted to be in relation to the trees, and there was still sunlight and there was still trees as well, and it wouldn't have been dark in her house. I don't know if Mary wants to feel like she has power affecting everyone's decisions, or if people just made assumptions, or if Mary is just incredibly inarticulate and indecisive. I'm really not sure 100% exactly what happened, but Cody says he assumed the lot by the road would mean trees, but less trees, so Mary would still get sunlight. Mary says she needs it to not be an attack on her, and Cody says he's not doing that. And Mary says the look on his face seems otherwise. And he does look at her very antagonistically. I will say that. Cody says he's just trying to accommodate everyone. Mary says from what she understands about life, life experiences allow you to have different perspectives at different times in your life. Right, after you experience different things, you grow and your perceptions and your perspectives about life change. That's true. She says the experience of her living in a house surrounded by trees has shown her that she doesn't want a house surrounded by trees that is dark all the time. She doesn't want darkness surrounding her. Christine asks if they can look at the land from scratch. She says they haven't even called a surveyor yet. She seems to really be the voice of reason today. And there's a lot to do before even picking lots. And that this whole picking lots argument, this drama, this fight could be completely useless after the surveyor comes and divides the land. Yes, that's completely true. That's exactly what I was thinking. She wants everyone to focus on the things they look forward to. She wants to make this a happy thing, a positive thing. She's done talking about the negative stuff. Robin says even if they stop the conversation, it isn't going to go away. Mary will still be hurt. Cody will still be frustrated. And Robin thinks sometimes they have to just talk it out for an hour. She doesn't seem to have wanted to stop the conversation. Christine said she knows all the wives spoke separately with Cody, but they all know that going directly to each other is easier. Bingo! That's exactly what I was saying. That's exactly what I mentioned earlier. There would be less manipulation and much less miscommunication if all the wives just went to a surveyor first, figured out what the parcels and the lots, 4 separate lots were in the first place, and then decide where everyone would like to go and then go to Cody with it. Christine tells Cody there is no fault with him, and Cody says he frequently goes out there with his wives as a couple, and he tells Mary that he went there with her, and now she's saying she doesn't want to be where she said she wanted to be when he took her out there. And Christine tells Cody they aren't discussing it anymore. Mary says she never said that. She just knows she doesn't want to be deep in the trees like a broken record. Janelle asks Mary if she can understand how they all felt Mary had said she didn't want trees. And Mary says she understands that, meaning how she understands basically how everyone got the impression that she didn't want trees and that she didn't want the lot in the trees. But that's not exactly what Mary feels that she said. She feels basically like they made that inference from what she said when she didn't give a firm no, basically. Janelle says it's he said, she said, with everyone still repeating their points. And I really think it's all meaningless until they get the surveyor to divide the land into 4 lots, and only then will any decision be relevant as to who gets what lot. If I was a wife, which I would never ever do in a million years, I would tell everyone to call me after the surveyor divides the land and maps it out, and then I'll see where I'd prefer and if it coincides with everyone, because this is totally pointless. Janelle thinks everyone should move on from repeating points. Mary doesn't want everyone to focus on how horrible she is, flip-flopping, changing her mind when she understands that she wasn't communicating well. But she remembers when she was at the land that she didn't want her house against the mountain and also deeply surrounded by trees like her current rentals because she was worried about how much light the house would get. Cody says they will have to get a surveyor to mark the property. That is true. Cody says Robin is the only one apologizing and no one else is owning what happened, meaning Mary isn't taking accountability. I think Mary is having trouble being clear about what she wants, which is trees but not deep in the trees, or trees from all sides surrounding her home with the mountain behind it. She wants enough light flowing in. And she just doesn't really want to have a dark home. That's all she's saying. And I think she should have voiced that a little more clearly and made clear that she wasn't saying no to the lot with trees. I think it's very premature to argue at all or have any drama about who gets what when a surveyor hasn't even mapped out the 4 parcels of land yet. So really, this is all completely pointless. And I'm also not sure why Cody is going individually with each wife and telling them to pick where they would like to be before we know where the lots will even be. I really think that the most equitable approach would be to have the 4 wives handle it together mutually rather than each one speaking separately with Cody. The wives should be logical, get a surveyor, get the map, and each wife decide what suits her, and then with the 4 wives together, compromise until each wife is satisfied with the lot that they get. Everyone might want the same lot, and everyone might not get their top choice because there are 4 choices, but that way they decide mutually with give and take rather than each one speaking to Cody and Cody trying to manage pleasing everyone. If I was a wife, my only response would be call me after the surveyor maps out the land, then we'll talk. Because this is all fruitless drama over imaginary lots, fruitless stress. I really don't get it. Cody says everyone is in a bad place and he wants to know if the wives have suggestions on how to prevent the drama that happened over the lots. Christine says it's about choice and being heard, that they need to each choose where they go and be heard, and it's better not to make assumptions. Mary has no suggestions when asked. She is just done and pissed. Robin thinks a little progress was made, but a lot of the conversation still needs to happen. They gather and pray. Christine says it wasn't about the property. It was about communication and them all being separated. And sometimes they think they're fine. And this was an example of being fine, not cutting it. Cody says the fight at the property is a symptom of a bigger problem that was just the battleground. It wasn't the war. Cody doesn't feel complete resolution after the meeting, and he says that's the symptom of their bigger problem, but he doesn't know how to cure what ails them. The way Cody has increasingly become controlling and emotionally abusive, withdrawing intimacy and neglecting his kids is ailing them more and more and more this season. I wonder if Cody thought leading by force and ego and using abusive tactics and a my way or the highway attitude was the answer. That does it for this episode of Sister Wives with Mary Jane K. I'll be back Sunday for the finale of the one-in-one tell-all. And for 90 Day with Mary Jane K on my other channel, 90 Day with Mary Jane K, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate all of my listeners and subscribers, and if anyone has a suggestion of a specific episode of Sister Wives or a show they'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know in the comments section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Sister Wives as well. Thanks so much for listening. See you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye.